Hello chess fans, this is Rick from Chess to Impress with a video on what is the missing piece. I don't know the author of this beautiful chess composition that I'm going to show you. I found it one night as I was browsing Facebook. It was posted by Nathan C. Smolensky and the solution was given by Jeff Caveney. And for the duration of this video, I'm asking you to switch off your normal chess brain. The fact that white is winning in the position on the board is of no importance. The question here is what is the missing piece on the h4 square? Which piece is it and of which color? In chess we have king, queen, rook, bishop, knight and pawn, and both white and black have these pieces, so a total variety of 12 pieces. Well, we can rule out the kings very quickly. Each player can only have one king, so we can cross those ones off. And we can also quickly see that we can rule out a black queen or a rook on h4, because then the white king would be in check, as is the black king, and we cannot have a chess position with both kings in check at the same time. So we can cross off the black queen and rook as well. And to make further progress, it is time that we asked ourselves the question, what was white's last move? Well, it must have been c7 takes d8 promotion to a rook. Otherwise, black would have been in check before white made this move. You can look at the position and convince yourself that indeed that c-pawn must have been on c7 before white played, otherwise black would already have been in check. And this gives us a chance to tick off the white pawn off our list, because white has 7 pawns on the board and we just established that the 8th pawn promoted on d8, so there cannot have been a white pawn on the h4 square. So there we go, let's tick off the white pawn off our list. But what did white capture on d8? What is the black piece that white captured there? Well, it must have been a bishop or a knight, because if it had been a queen or a rook, we cannot explain black's last move. And to illustrate this, let's put a queen on d8. So we're saying that this is not possible as we cannot explain what black's last move must have been. The queen is giving check to the white king on h8, but where did that queen come from? It can only have come from a square where it was already giving check to the white king. Thus, it's not possible that there was a queen on the 8 and the same applies for a rook. Because that would mean that black would have given check to the king before he made his move, and also after, and that is not possible. So our conclusion is that there was a bishop or a knight on the d8 square, which got taken by the white pawn on c7 to get to our initial position. And knowing this helps us a lot, because now we can establish that black must have promoted a pawn to a bishop or a knight. Let's put a knight on d8 to illustrate this. If the piece on d8 was a knight, it must have been a promoted knight, as black still has his 2 knights on the board. So a promotion from a black pawn must have happened in the course of the game. And let's now put a bishop on the board. We know that on d8 there was either a knight or a bishop. If that piece on d8 was indeed a bishop, it must have been a promoted black dark squared bishop, as black started with the bishop on f8, and the bishop on d8 cannot be that bishop from f8, because how did the bishop get there? There are pawns on e7 and g7, so the bishop could never have gone from f8 to d8, which means the bishop on d8 is a promoted piece. The bishop on f8 must have been taken by white on its initial square during the course of the game. So now we know that the black piece which was captured by white on his last move was a bishop or a knight, and we also know that black has promoted a pawn to a bishop or a knight, which is possible as black has 7 pawns left on the board. The pawn that is missing promoted to a bishop or a knight, and thus we can rule out a black pawn being on h4. We can tick the black pawn off our list. There we go. And all this helps us to rule out that a black bishop or a black knight is on h4. If the piece on d8 was a knight and black only promoted once, the piece on h4 cannot be a knight as well. Otherwise, black would have 4 knights on the board, which would mean 2 promotions. If the piece on d8 was a knight, the piece on h4 can also not be a bishop, as that bishop would have to be a promoted piece, as it cannot be the original bishop from f8, as we already covered. That would be 2 promoted pieces on the board for black, which is not possible, as black has 7 pawns, so can only have promoted once. Now if the piece on d8 was a bishop, then the piece on h4 cannot be a bishop, as that gives us 3 bishops from the dark squares, 2 of which would have to be promoted bishops. And finally, if the piece on d8 was a bishop, then the piece on h4 cannot be a black knight either, as that would give us a promoted bishop on d8 and a promoted knight on h4, which is 2 promoted pieces. So we have achieved some success. We can tick off the black bishop and knight off our list. And let's do that. So we now know that there is not a black piece on h4. We also know that it's not a white king or a white pawn, but there are still 4 pieces left. We're almost there, but to make further progress, we must now establish what black pawn promoted. And we can quickly see that it must have been the black h pawn that promoted. It cannot have been the black f pawn, because that f pawn is now on c4. You can easily see that that pawn on c4 must have been black's f pawn. So it must have been black's h pawn that promoted. Furthermore, if we count white's pieces, he has 11 pieces left on the board, which means 5 of them were captured by black. We already saw that the black f-pawn made 3 captures on e6, d5 and c4. They are all light squares, and the black a-pawn made 1 capture on b6, also a light square. And for the h-pawn to have promoted, it must have taken something on g2 to get to the promotion square, and that is also a light square. So, for the black h-pawn to have made it to the bottom rank, it must have taken something on g2. So now we know that all the 5 missing white pieces have been taken by pawns, and all have been taken on light squares. So which are the 5 pieces that are missing? Well, it is the queen, one of the rooks, the other rook, as you know, has promoted, so 1 rook was taken. The 2 knights are missing, so they have been taken, and 1 of the bishops. The bishop was taken on a light square, and that gets us to our solution. By eliminating all other pieces, the only piece that could be on h4 is a white bishop of the dark squares. And that would make the puzzle complete. So we can tick the last few pieces of our list, and then we only have the bishop left, and we know that it must be a dark squared bishop because h4 is a dark square, and the light squared bishop was taken by black on a light square. And there we have it. We have that bishop on h4. And we have solved the composition. We now have a fully legal position. White's last move was c7 takes d8, promotion by a rook, capturing a black bishop or knight, it doesn't matter which one. We established that black must have promoted one of his pawns to bishop or knight, again it doesn't matter which one. We found out that it was the black h-pawn that promoted, and then we saw that black made 5 captures on light squares, which got us to the solution. Mind-blowing stuff. Again, I don't know who the author is of this composition. I contacted Nathan C. Smolenski on Facebook, who had posted this position. He doesn't know either, but said he would ask around. Maybe he has a lot of contacts in the chess composition world. If I find out who the author is, I will make sure to post it here in the description section underneath this video. This was a bit of a different type of video, not the usual Grandmaster games or viewers games, but I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, please subscribe to the Chess to Impress channel, and please leave a comment. I will read them all and I will reply to them all. If you liked the video, it would be great if you could share it on social media by clicking the share button on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram, on Twitter and on Facebook. I've just started a chess trivia series on Twitter. This is Rick for Chess to Impress. Thank you for watching.